Today we're talking about capital. That's what this is all about. What do you need as a small business owner? There's a community here that cares for you and wants to support you. We're going to call up our first panel. Take us back to the beginning for you guys. How, like, the mystery of capital, and how did you kind of punch through that? Or what are some things that you did that helped you gain confidence that allowed us to call you and say, hey, you need to be a panelist up here to help other small business owners, whether they're a nonprofit or a for-profit, think about capitalizing their businesses? Craig, I'm looking at you because you're going to start us.
So, you know, when I was a kid, my favorite game was Monopoly. My favorite board game was Monopoly. I probably played 1,000 games of Monopoly. And the way you win Monopoly, you know, it's actually not based on who has the most money, right? The way you win Monopoly is you don't lose. And the only way you lose Monopoly is when you run out of money, right? And, you know, for entrepreneurs, there are a million ways that we can win. There is one universal way that we all lose, is we run out of capital, right? And so, you know, and I think that's a way to think about capital, a way to think about cash is you have to, you know, you've got to have the optionality there, right? Like if you get too lean, you know, the less cash that you have, the less line of credit that you have, the less availability you have, the less options that you have, and eventually you have no options at all. For me, starting Mastery Prep, I had no idea how to get any capital at all. I just knew that I needed it. And I knew that every time I sold something, counterintuitively, I needed it even more, right? Because we would sell, we need to deliver, then finally we could get paid. So I could actually sell myself into oblivion, which would be miserable. And so for me, the first step was joining a community, was being part of a community that has actually done this. So I joined the Louisiana Technology Park and Nexus. At the time, we had people like Steven and Genevieve, and they were like, you probably need some capital. I'm like, that sounds great. I'm going to the bank. They're asking me for a profit and loss. I don't really have a profit and loss. Like, you know, I'm not even at that point yet. And they were able to then help. They knew who the people were. They knew who to talk to at the banks and connected us with True Fund, and they connected us with local banks. They talked about an accounts receivable line. They talked about all these different strategies for our size, but the people and the connection there. So I think that was the first thing for me, is being part of a community. Like, I knew that I needed the capital, but there were other people in this community that actually know who the capital is, know what they need, and can help you get there.
Love that. Anybody else want to jump in on that?
So my name is Kelly Rainey. I work for Louisiana Innovation, which is a new division of Louisiana Economic Development, or better known as LED. I have a banking background of nearly 20 years, and I will tell you, when I started in banking, I just kind of fell into that out of college because, well, they had benefits and made me the best offer, and I just kind of stuck with it. It paid off well, but I grew up learning that finance in the banking industry, it was from a traditional sense. And so really the clients that we worked with, those small businesses, we looked for them to have a debt service coverage of about 1.3, which meant that every dollar they lent you, they were asking for you to have 3 to repay them. And oftentimes it's a situation that if you had $3, why are you asking me to borrow 1? So I think a key message is recognizing that financing is not a one-size-fits-all. It's a matter of really understanding what, you know, your business activities are, what industry you participate in, what are your goals for your business, because all of that carries weight to really determine which options that are available here in Louisiana are best suited for your business. Traditional financing is not for everybody. SBA loans is not for everybody. Those two types of financing often look for steady cash flow and collateral. And sometimes if you're a younger business or a new business, those things can be challenging. So there's alternative lenders, community lenders, depending upon the size of your business, type of business. If it's a high growth type business, maybe an equity investment is best suited for you. But I think the biggest message that or learning that I have seen from going from the banking industry, starting with the super high expectations in traditional banking to be qualified, to working with the state, it opened my eyes to all of the resources that are available right under our noses, as most people don't realize that. I worked in the bank for almost 20 years, and I knew about SBA lending, I knew about SBDCs, but that's really it. I had no idea about all the resources that are available here for you with the state. But also, I went to an economic development class this April in Kansas City to pursue my CXD, and one of the instructors was touting their library because of all of the business resources available to them right there. And it was an aha moment because nobody in that room realized that there are free resources right here that you have access to and paid for with your tax dollars at the library is another one, for example.
Yeah, thank you.
And
Go ahead, Stephen.
It's a process to get funding. And then Craig, I love pointing to Craig's experience because he personifies this. Craig made perfect score on the ACT and the SAT. Craig is a smart guy, but he was smart enough to know that he didn't know everything, and he reached out to people to try to help him. And Craig went through everything from true funds. He went to the angel investing. From there, he went to professional funding and ended up with private equity. And so don't get frustrated. It's a process. And that whole process takes years, right? I mean, it's you're not a one and done. You're going to be told no. You're going to be told no. You're going to be told no. But you need to make sure that you're talking to the people when you're ready. If you're talking to an angel, if you're talking to private equity and you don't even have revenue yet, you're wasting your time, you're wasting their time, and you're going to get a black eye. You need to make sure that whenever you talk to someone, that it's the appropriate time to talk to them.
Thank you. Great. Yes, Ben.
So Ben Vance, I work with Falk and Winkler. My grandparents were small business owners. My wife is a small business owner. I've been in public accounting for 20 years, but took a 4-year gap and worked for a family office. So when I look at the topics, I think I've been involved with almost everything other than the grant funding, which I'm interested to see, kind of some of that free, non-dilutive type of capital. But just echoing what they said is not being afraid to have the discussion. When my wife and I were talking to a community bank about their business, I was surprised with just being able to articulate exactly what you need and thinking they would give us credit card and a small line. And they were like, well, what if we did? I mean, it was like triple what I was going in there thinking, but because we could articulate it, we were able to have it. So I think not waiting until it's too late to have those discussions and just not being afraid of someone telling you no. I mean, there's a ton of options that are out there.
Awesome. Thank you. Adam, Tony. Adam, you look like you're ready to jump in.
Well, Stephen mentioned that, it's about time, being at the right time, but it's also a timing issue. When do you need the money, right? Don't let the fact, I need $3 million say, well, I can't do anything today because I don't have $3 million, right? It's when do you need that money? How do you need it spaced out? So it's more of a, where am I getting the money, but also what am I using it for and when am I using it? So it's not like everybody needs all the money all at once up front. As much as it would be nice to not have to worry about it and say, oh, look at the bank account, it's way up here. That's just not the reality. So it's, take that first step, make that first sale, start that first development, and worry about the money along the way, but don't say, I don't have it, I can't do anything.
Yeah, good point. Tony.
Hey, good morning, everybody. I just want to get a sense of who I'm speaking with and who's here. How many of you currently run a small business today? Raise your hand.
Raise them high, though, because some of us can't see.
Awesome. And how many of you want to start one, you don't know how, you're here today to learn how to get started? Okay, about a fourth of the room. Okay, next question. How many of you would be so excited, like over the moon, if your small business made $1 million this year? Y'all made $1 million, you would just be over the moon. Okay.
Oh, profit.
Yeah.
Profit. Yeah. Let's all raise our hands, right? Yeah.
Okay. How many of you would be grossly disappointed, just ashamed of yourself if you did not make $1 billion this year? One person. I think she was being facetious.
Maybe she's got high expectations.
Yeah, so this question sounds random, but it really helps you identify which sources of funding are best for you. Because there's some ideas and some businesses that require a much different size of capital up front than others. And so based on this room, I wouldn't be talking to any of you about private equity, not today. I wouldn't be talking about giving away an ownership stake in your business because that's not your goal. The thing is, there is no wrong answer to any of these questions. And these decisions are very intimate and very personal because you're the only one at 3 a.m. when you can't sleep who has to think about the implications of what just happened. Because when you take money from someone, it's as serious as a marriage. It's not like dating, it's like a marriage. In every way, there's times you love the lender, there's times you hate him. But it's like till death do you part, or until a really expensive legal process to do you part, right? And it's the same way. And so these decisions, whether it's a loan from a bank or signing and getting an investment from an investor who now has ownership in your company with you, right? You don't have to pay them back like you do a lender, but they're in it with you until the end, right? These decisions are so personal. There's no one right answer for anyone in this room. And no one can answer that question except for you. Really based on what are your goals, right? Are you starting this to create generational wealth for you and your children? In other words, you never plan to sell. You just plan to steward that business and carry it down. Or is it like, I have a great idea, I have a 4-year window of energy and inspiration, and I want to do this and exit really quick? Again, no wrong answer, but understanding why you're starting a business, because it sucks. Starting and running businesses sucks. It is the worst. It is, I can't emphasize how dumb it is. But for the people who do it, including me, including you, you are special. You're needed. We power the economy. Everyone's not built for this. Most people are not. If you are in that class of people, the city needs you, the state needs you, the country needs you, your customers need you. So nothing I'm saying is to discourage or disparage you. It's just when you go into these conversations, go in sober-minded, clear-headed around why I'm doing this. How long am I willing to do this for? Because some companies, minimum 10 years before you start to see it making sense. It is totally irrational, makes no sense until year 10. Then there's some that it makes sense immediately. I inherited a business from my dad or my mom, or I'm going in with a friend, not too big aspirations. We just want to sell a product across the city and go to Orange Beach once a year, right? Again, no wrong answer. My last comment on this is just to not quit your day job. If you can have someone else pay your bills, pay your health care, as you figure these really complicated things out, do that. Don't listen to anyone. They are idiots if they tell you, quit your job, quit your livelihood to try this thing that probably won't work. Probably won't. If it does work, you're going to look like a genius in hindsight. Everyone's going to call you crazy up until that point, though. All right? So don't quit your job. Take your time, because once you're in, you're in. And you're going to be in with a group of people who are going to encourage you and support you. Like Stuart said, like others said, Baton Rouge has experts in business in spades. We have them, and we're willing to share. This isn't like New York or other cities where it's cutthroat and we're all trying to get you. You could see this room today in just the diversity of people that are here. Baton Rouge is a special place. And so you're in the right place, you're in the right room.
Thank you, Tony. I completely agree with you. I like the fact that you talk about how an idiot would tell you to walk away from a job. You know, the reality of it is that's true. But a lot of times it's like, you know, I saw a lot of hands that they've already done that, right? And I would imagine everybody's here because you have some sort of burning question, you know. So my last question to you guys, Andrew, you know you have to tell me when to stop. Okay. That's all great wisdom. What would you go back and tell your younger self when you think about the capital landscape? What would be that thing you would go back to and say? Now that you know what you know, drop wisdom on yourself from 10 years ago. Craig, I don't know if you're looking at me because you want me to call on you.
It's always that. That's
always like that look.
Me.
You're looking
exactly.
through me.
That was that look. So I would tell myself, cast a wider net, right? Because this is not whatever I'm doing to raise capital, to raise funds from a bank, to get a loan, to get an angel investment. Chances are, even though it always feels like this is the last time, if I just get this capital, then I'll have all I need and the business will be self-funding and everything will be great. There's always going to be a next time. And, to Stephen's point about you're going to hear no a lot. It's a sales process. It's really a sales process. If you want to get a line of credit from one bank, you should approach 3 or 5, and you should expect 2 or 4 are going to tell you no or not give you the right terms. If you're going to, if you go to angels and every single angel says yes and writes you a check, then you've priced your round way, way too low, right? Like it's way too exciting for them. You need to cast a wide net. Mastery Prep eventually raise capital all along the I-10 corridor. We got investments from angels in Lafayette and in Baton Rouge and New Orleans, but it wasn't really until our last round that involved angels where that happened, because I just wasn't casting the net wide enough. I wasn't talking with people far and wide enough, and so because of that, those seeds weren't planted. Right? Even it would have been great if I'd gotten some no's in Lafayette during my first round that I was trying to raise, because those could have become yeses. I could have said, hey, I'm still around here a year and a half from now. It's still time to do this. It could still be working the funnel and the process. And that applies. And you would think, like, I had this idea that like all banks are banks, right? When I was starting, right? But every single bank, every single local bank, every single national bank has a different set of priorities, has a different risk profile in their portfolio. And so you just can't predict what they're going to say or how they're going to act or what they're going to do. Let them say no, right? Don't say no for them before you even talk to them.
Thank you. Go ahead, Ben.
Yeah, I was going to say, again, echoing the comment here, it's every business is different. For the business that my wife owns, I would say slow down, lower your expectations, and hold on to cash. When we went into it as a business that had been in business for 35 years and we thought we were just going to pour gasoline on it, and the reality is of us doing 2 of our 10 goals in 1 year was pretty good, but we're chasing 7 of them and trying to do all of them. And then inevitably there's tariffs, there's floods, there's stores closed for 2 weeks because it snowed 12 inches in, South Louisiana. So things are going to happen. Hold on to cash, use other people's money if you can, and, slow your expectation. And it's a 10-year run, not a 2-year sprint for that type of business. Others, you might need a sprint.
Yeah. Anybody else? Go.
There's this. If you're looking for an investment, just make sure you're getting smart money. Just don't take the first check that comes your way because you're desperate. Because desperate time, if you do that, you're, to Tony's point, a year or 2 down the road, y'all aren't going to see eye to eye on things. So if you're talking to an investor, this is usually more early stage or even latter stage, make sure that everything aligns, what you're trying to do with the company aligns with what your investor wants to do. Because once you take their money, to Tony's point, y'all are married, and sometimes it's even more than marriage. And I don't know what that would be other than, but it's really, y'all are really tied at the hip. So really make sure that whoever you
slavery.
Yeah, exactly. That you're really aligned, and feel free to walk away.
Indentured servitude. Sorry.
Feel free to say no to someone if you don't like the terms, because you're going to have to live with those for years.
Yeah. Okay. Any other wisdom?
I would just say don't estimate, right? If you say, oh, we need $5,000 for marketing, say, I need $5,000 for marketing because a website's going to cost me $2,000. I want to run television ads that are going to cost me $1,000. Know what that is. Don't just, people are like, oh, I'm gonna hire some people to write the code and it's going to cost me $38 a month. And it's like, no, that's not what coders cost, right? Pick up the phone, call, find out how much you need by understanding what things cost.
Yeah. Okay. Yes, go ahead.
I would say make sure you understand all of the options available to you. There could be opportunities to possibly stack those options, and surround yourself with good advisors. Whatever advice you're being given, don't just take it at face value. Make sure you understand and look into that yourself.
Yeah, so just a quick mention of one of our resources that ties into this. So Gale Business Entrepreneurship is kind of a comprehensive database that covers all aspects of starting and running a business. So it really gets into detail about the financing and all the kind of terms that you're hearing today about investments. So this is where you can do kind of your boots on the ground research to really understand all these terms and what it means. And we have lots of great stuff as well in your folders there that go into it as well. So here's an example of something from Gale Entrepreneurship. It's an investor pitch. So there's lots of samples of pitches where you can kind of take information from them, see how they're laid out. And these are all successful pitches as well, so they have worked. So you know it's good quality stuff. And then also we have Gale Business Plan Builder, which we talked a lot about last episode, we'll call it. So this has interactive sections on finance, so break-even analysis, that kind of thing. So you can use this along with Gale Entrepreneurship to kind of get your finances in order, get all your ducks in a row before you're talking to somebody about giving you money.
Businesses love the idea of being able to find the competition, right? Could be free money, could be, hey, I won this, here's a $20,000, $50,000, $100,000 check, whatever that is. But I wanted to bring these guys up because, one, they've been a part of these things, and two, let's just try to talk about this because I hear people talking about it all the time. I just need to find a pitch competition. Do they? Do they need to find a pitch competition? How do these work? Chris, talk a little bit about it. You look like you're ready to go.
Yeah, I think I'm evolving on this, maybe a little bit talking to Tony about a lot of it. But for me, for those of you who don't know me, I started Waiter in 2013, was an idea on a napkin. It actually started at a pitch competition called Startup Weekend in Gainesville, Florida. And just got up, pitched an idea, formed a team, built a prototype, built $1 billion company in 5 years. So I guess for me, pitch competitions were pretty important, right? I don't go to Startup Weekend. I don't do that first pitch competition. I don't build $1 billion company. It's not for everyone. I want to go back to something Tony said earlier. The first decision you have to make as a business owner, and a lot of you already are business owners in here, is this going to be a lifestyle business, which Tony talked about, building generational wealth for you and your family, or are you going to be a scalable growth business like what I built, go from 0 to $200 million in revenue in 5 years? And the money, the decision you make about taking money depends on the kind of business that you are building. So Tony mentioned, don't quit your day job. He's right if you're building a lifestyle business, but if you're going to build a scalable business and you're going to have to raise money out of the gate, you won't be able to raise money unless you are in it 100%. So it just depends on the type of business. And if you're building a scalable business, pitch competitions are something you should look for because it gives you access to a lot of different things. Number one, it gives you practice on how to pitch your business to investors or potential investors. And you learn a lot through those pitch competitions about that. But it also gives your company a profile as a potentially scalable business with potential employees, stakeholders. So maybe it's your first customers or whatever that you're going to pick up from those pitch competitions. And so I think pitch competitions are important from that perspective. If you are building a lifestyle business for you and your family, you want to make a nice living out of it, you want to build it over 20 years, maybe someday when you decide to retire, you might sell it. Well, then pitch competitions are not important, right? Or like Tony believes now, and I agree with him, if you are an early stage technology startup and you need to be focused on building the product, pitch competitions aren't going to help you for that. But once you have the product built and you're ready to raise your first capital or bring on your first customers, you can get some benefit from those competitions.
Yeah, I think what folks have been alluding to, I've been sharing as sort of a new epiphany of mine because entrepreneurship is a journey. The ideas you have when you first start out are not going to be the ideas you have 3 years in, 5 years in. having participated in these types of competitions, they were really designed for the investment community, not for the founder themselves. It's a way for investors to get access to a large number of ideas in a very short amount of time and watch the best ones kind of rise to the top. So it helps that investor workflow of finding investable ideas get a bit more efficient. From a founder's perspective, however, it's not the most beneficial, and the barrier to entry is really low. So anyone can put together a pitch deck. Anyone can sort of learn how to present that presentation on a stage, get a nice suit, rehearse that pitch, right? And what you put in the slides is not verifiable. Like, how many of you have watched Shark Tank? And there's a little disclaimer across the bottom of the screen, every episode, that says, what you see here is slightly for entertainment purposes. Whether or not these entrepreneurs receive funding is not decided on the show. There's other diligence and things that have to happen afterwards. And it's the same thing with the pitch competitions, right? It's easy to get up there and do that, but I would encourage anyone not to get distracted with the pitch competitions. You can participate in them. I participated in many, Chris has, and others. There's nothing wrong with them, but don't confuse that with actually building the business. The work of building your business is the case no matter what. You're gonna have to do that work. As Chris was saying, you're in better position to win those and compete at those if you've spent time building the business first. And so just fine point on it, any one of us can, if we work hard enough on that PowerPoint presentation, we can get onto someone's stage and we can share our ideas, even if it's still kind of half-baked. But it doesn't benefit you to do it unless you've put in the work.
Yeah. And I don't want to take this whole time to just talk about pitch competitions, right? That is one aspect, but we also, I think what's really important is to talk about the grants and the incentives that also exist. So Kelly was supposed to be up here, and I apologize, I didn't call your name out. So don't worry, I did that to somebody else last time.
1 and 4, not 2.
But I want to talk about that because I know there's programs out there through the state, and I know Adam, Kelly, you guys have probably accessed some of those as well. But let's talk a little bit about that as well, so that we know about this. Like, what are some other things that are available that maybe are mysterious right now to small business owners?
Well, I'll just kind of echo one of the comments that I mentioned earlier is, be mindful of all of the options that are available. Do a little research because there could be ways to stack some of these incentives, programs, grants. For example, if you're doing some type of research in technology, you very well may find yourself eligible, your business eligible, that is, for some type of federal grant, whether that's SBIR, STTR, whether it's the federal R&D tax credit. Here on the local level in Louisiana, we have a local state R&D tax credit, which we provide up to a 30% tax credit on top of the federal award that you have received. And in addition and outside of that, oftentimes some of these companies, if they're very high growth and scalable and often lead to commercialization, they very well could be ripe for some type of equity investment as well. And so all of that is using OPM, other people's money.
Yeah.
And one of the key things with the R&D tax incentives, with SBIR grants, STTR grants, they're non-dilutive, right? So you're not giving up any of the company to get it, but they are specialized. I believe SBIR is about a 15% acceptance rate for phase one, and you've got to find the right grant. You got to talk to the program manager, say, hey, am I doing what you're looking for? And the SBIR grant is Small Business Innovative Research. So every federal agency, I believe there's 11 of them now, that have an R&D budget of a certain amount, they have to put a little over 3% into that pool to give to small businesses as SBIR grants. And so they're a great way to go out and understand if there's a market, right? That first, there's 2 phases, well, 3, 4 if you want to count phase 0 with the LTTO at LED, that helps you prepare for the phase 1. It's all about feasibility in that first stage. Is your idea something that is doable? They will give you the money through that grant, through NSF, through NASA. NASA's first time or phase 1 acceptance is actually about 30%, I learned a week ago. So having those to go out there and understand the feasibility of it, to understand, is it commercializable, right? Does somebody want it? Those are what the SBIR grants are good for. What you're not going to find a bunch of grants for is, oh, I need a new sign for the front of the building. I would love to start a new landscaping company. There's lots of landscaping companies. People aren't giving money to things that are already established. It's the things that we don't know that will work or not that are grant eligible through SBIR.
Yeah. I'm curious to ask kind of the three entrepreneurs here. Y'all talk a little bit about what have been some of the, outside of the pitch competitions, what have been some of the incentives or the grants that you guys have been able to access that have helped you grow your business either through the state or through, some other entity?
So, so one thing, and there's so many of these incentives and they're so crucial, and Mastery Prep has tried to leverage as many as we can. And it's been a big part of the LED incentives has been a big part of how we've been able to grow. So for example, if you are developing software in the state, you can get a tax credit on every dollar you spend on Louisiana payroll toward developing that software. It's called the Digital Media Tax Credit. You apply, you spend the money. It doesn't matter if you hope the product's successful, but it's all just based on spending the Louisiana payroll. You get approved for it. You go through a process. It is paperwork. That's the common denominator of all of these incentives. It's paperwork, but they've been around for a while. There are people who can help you do that, and it's net very positive. And it can be up to 25% of your spend comes back to you as a refund, as cash, right? That you can then reinvest in your business. It can fundamentally change the economics of what you're doing. There's another one that is not doesn't directly come to the business, but there's the angel tax credit. And basically, if you're a qualified business, you get qualified as a small business in Louisiana, and there's a few categories that are verboten, but pretty much almost any category of business can get this classification. And then when you raise money from angels, they get a tax credit back on what they invest in you. Right. And so what this fundamentally does is it changes the math for them on the value. So if you were having to raise money at a certain valuation, now all of a sudden, if you can guarantee for that angel that they're getting that tax credit back over the next several years, then it's way less risky for them. Then they can pay a higher price for your equity. And ultimately, it isn't direct money in your pocket, but it does prevent dilution. It does. It functions in a very similar way. There's the quality jobs program. So if you're about to start hiring and bringing on a new team member, and I think that's phasing out. There's high impact jobs now, but similar concept of I'm hiring on a new team member. Well, then you can get a rebate or a tax incentive for the salary that you're paying for that person, right? And again, it just changes the economics. It's a little bit of paperwork, right? But the time to sign up for a program like that is when you're starting to grow, when you're starting to make that happen. It can really add up over time. So, Mastery Prep's really benefited from those programs. It always is. It's red tape. You have to be willing to tolerate the red tape and work through that. But for us, we've been able to invest a lot more heavily in our software and be able to compete nationally because we've been able to tap into some of those incentive programs.
So I want to add to that what Craig's saying, and I'm going to make this a little bit interactive. I'm going to tell you how to pitch this because we used all the same stuff, right? If you're looking to build a scalable business like we did at Waiter, my pitch to the investors were, I'm looking to raise $200,000. If you invest $100,000, I'm a certified Louisiana entrepreneurial business, which means you will qualify. And we were in a opportunity zone, so you will qualify. If you invest $100,000, you will qualify to get $35,000 back in a tax credit from the state of Louisiana, which means you're getting $100,000 of equity in my company for a $75,000 investment. Once you've $65,000, excuse me.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
You were raising the money.
It would have been the 25%, it'd be the 75. Well, it depends, right? It's either 25 or 35%, depending on where your business is located. But you'll get, for $65,000, you're buying $100,000 worth of equity, right? So when he talks about how much it reduces your risk, it just reduced your investment risk by that amount. as an investor. And I raised $200,000 in 2 weeks on that program, right? With that pitch. And so you can do that same thing. You got to go through all the paperwork, all that. I'm going to tell you about another program that I used that was transformational in our business. So LED, it was called economic gardening back in the day when I did it, but it's called SIG now. I'm not even sure what SIG stands for. Should know that, but System for Integrated Growth. That's what it stands for, yeah. But that's a program where if you're a growing second stage scalable business, so by the time we had hit about $2 million in annual revenue, we were starting to expand all around the country, but we didn't have a plan for expansion. We really didn't want to spend the money to hire a consultant to go figure this plan out. And I get a call from Chris Casson at LED. He says, hey, Chris, I think your company would be perfect for our economic gardening, now SIG. I'm like, oh, yeah, tell me about it. Well, we will go and research any market or any expansion strategy that you have at our cost. We'll give you the results, and it'll lay out your expansion plan for you. And I was like, well, that sounds like a great deal. So we gave them a charter to go out and research every market in the Southeast at the time, which is what we were focused on, identify markets that had, populations of a certain amount. I think it was 750,000 or something like that. A certain number of restaurants, because we were targeting restaurants, and we gave them all this criteria. They went out, they researched the entire country, and they came back and gave us our expansion plan, and it didn't cost us a dime. Now, we had to put in the time, but it didn't cost us anything. That laid out our expansion plan for growth for Waiter. And that next week, we immediately started to execute that plan in the markets, in the priority that they had laid it out, because we had said, okay, we wanted, priorities should be contiguous to existing markets, population density, restaurant density, all these things. It would have taken us months or maybe years to figure out how to expand if we hadn't taken advantage of that program.
I'm going to challenge you. I would say this. I think that's where most businesses just never do it. Because to that point, Chris, it's like, imagine taking, you were able to stay focused on your company and your product because you now had this help externally. But if you would have had to slide that up in a priority, I'm just saying, I think there's a lot of people who hear that and go, well, I can't move that mountain.
Yeah, from a deployment of capital standpoint.
That's what I'm saying at the stage,
help,
right?
Yeah. Because I don't know what that cost, but I'm sure it wasn't cheap.
Well, and since we're talking about the statutory tax credit programs, and the Angel program has been a wonderful program. I know I've been a part of for the past couple of years with the lady that administers that program. With any of the statutory programs that are benefiting your business, don't be shy to make sure your local politicians know how meaningful it is, because ultimately, when session hits, they look at all of our current statutory programs, among other things, when they decide how much to appropriate to these state programs. And I'll tell you, the Angel tax credit got a stay over
we just went through
this
that
past year.
Yeah.
There's no certain life term for this program that it will live past the next 12 months. Hopefully it will, because it has been impactful. So don't be shy to let the local politicians know what your business needs, how it's helping you, so that they can root for you in the Capitol whenever they're in session to keep these programs funded and alive.
Yeah. Tony, so anything? Go ahead, Craig.
Yeah, I just wanted to broaden the aperture or the scope of the non-dilutive conversation for a bit, because if you're working on a small business, some of these programs may not apply, but I think the general takeaway for everyone is there is free money. And money and capital, in my opinion, is not the hardest part of building this business. It's one of the easier parts today. There is money everywhere. It really just depends on how you want it and what terms do you want it on. So far, we've talked about loans from banks. We've talked about grants. We've talked about investment. Finding a dollar is actually not the most difficult part of what you're trying to do. And that's why everyone in this room is pretty special, because you've identified a problem. You've identified an opportunity to provide a better service or a better product to a community of people. That work is harder than finding the money. And you're the best suited and fit to do that work. And so if you focus on that, I know it might sound cliche, but the money just comes. Like if you focus on really understanding who is my customer, who is my audience, listening to them, meeting with them every day, every week, and not just sitting there not paying attention, but really digesting the problem they say they are facing, and then going off and creating a better solution for that, and just trying to tighten that loop, right? You should be talking to customers probably once a day, probably multiple times a day. You're going to get smarter each time. Your solution to their problem is going to become smarter too, right? Whether it's grantees or investors or banks, they just want to see that you've done that work, right? So a lot of the free money that is out there, again, it could come from philanthropists. There's the Goldman Sachs 10,000 small businesses program. There is no shortage, especially in the internet age. We are connected to the world. We are part of the World Wide Web. So just because you're based in Louisiana, you have access to funding from all around the world. And so money and capital is not the hardest part. I know it may feel like that if there's no money in the bank account, but I promise you, if you work on solving the problem, more grants are going to become available to you. More loans are going to become available, more investment. And so I just wanted to provide that perspective.
Yeah, let me clarify what he's saying right there. What he's saying right there is you can't go tell investors, if you just give me the money, I can do this. What he's saying is you got to go do this and then say, if you give me more money, I can do way more of this.
Yeah.
Right.
I'm going to jump in. So thank you, Chris and Tony, for plugging the last 2 workshops we did on marketing and business plan, where we got really deep into customer voice and what you're doing and how do you position yourself. And so if you missed those, thank you guys for that plug. Craig, you wanted to join and add something.
So just something very, very basic I want to share about accessing the grant programs, the incentives, based on kind of the misconceptions and fear factors that I had going into it. And it's that, you look at, if you say, oh, wow, I want to try applying for this angel credit, or I want to try applying for this digital media credit, or, you know what, I've heard a lot of great things about SBIR, and I want to try to apply for one of these grants. But like take LED, for example, with some of those incentives. It looks very intimidating. Like they have a website there. There's all this legal, it points to different statutes, but just recognize the fact that there are real live human beings at LED that their whole goal in life is to help you succeed, right? And if you call them, if you email them, if you talk to them, if you have questions, working through it, they don't have some list of like, this Craig guy, he's an idiot, don't give him any money, right? Like they don't have anything like that. They want to help you figure it out, work your way through it, solve the problems. Just like if you go to a bank, you're not talking to the underwriter at first, you're talking to someone whose job it is to sell loans, right? And so the first, you don't need to go in acting like you know all your stuff. You can ask them, what are your criteria? What are you looking for? How can I make my case better? Get their help. Just like the angels and the private equity, they're all trying to deploy capital too, right? And if you reframe it from, I was all defensive and I was like trying to pose and act like I knew something, right? But the moment I'd start asking questions and ask for their help, then it would open doors. I mean, for SBIR, I don't know if this still exists, but there used to be a phase 0 grant. Maybe it's still here. There's a grant you can get to pay for writing the grant. For SBR phase 1, and they actually then train you on how to do it and how to work through that. And Louisiana has a program for that. So there's those on ramps if you're willing to be a little vulnerable, ask questions. I made the mistake at first of being like, I'm a businessman in an oversized business suit, and like I'm sure is incredibly transparent. But the moment I just say like, hey, I don't know how to do all this. Can you help me with this?
Yeah.
It's amazing how many people are willing to help you get there.
All right, I'm going to kick it to Adam real quick because, Adam, I love everything that they're saying, but somebody out here is going, I love everything you said, but what do I do?
Well, I just want to follow up with that because it's, there is the phase 0 program. A guy named Hutch at LED is running it. Hutch.mcclendon@la.gov if you want to email him, but he's in the middle of like a 5-part series about how to do SBIRs. Like yesterday it was how to go from phase 1 to phase 2. I don't remember what the next one is tomorrow, but if you look up SBIR LED, you'll find Hutch. in like you were saying, oh, it's not like they're not going to call you.
It's fundraising. Fundraising.
Oh, fundraising. Okay. Hutch has probably called Chris 3 times this week just to see what's going on, right? I mean, Hutch will be all over you.
I speak to Hutch often. Matter of fact, Russ, my co-founder back there of my current company, we're in the process of working with Hutch on a grant, on a research grant for what we're doing. So,
yeah. So, but Adam and Kelly, you too. But what else can they do? Can they come find you?
I mean, we've got.
How do you walk people through this?
I worked the better part of the fourth quarter last year putting together, I think it's 15, 16 slides of an SBIR guide that says, this is how we do it in 12 weeks, right? What are they looking for? What's the first step? How do you identify those opportunities? So I'm happy to give anybody a copy of that guide, walk you through it. There's a guy in our office, Jason Boudreau, who's been working with SBIR for the last 18, 19 years as a part of LSU. So,
yeah. Go ahead, Kelly.
I would say, understand your why first, why you're doing what you're doing, who you're serving, what your goals are, and then start by having a conversation. Have a conversation early with many people. If you already have existing relationships with a bank, maybe you start there. If you don't know where to go, call us. We have an internationally recognized small business services department for all of the Edward Lowe programming that is available to Louisiana small businesses. There's a group of people who are waiting to talk with you and understand what your business needs are and match you with the most appropriate resource available.
Just tell you about a couple of funding resources that we have for nonprofits. So I know not everybody is in the nonprofit world, but if you are, we have some great stuff for you. So both of these resources I'm going to tell you about are only available at the River Center branch. So you do have to go down there to use them in-house. They're not available remotely. It's one of the few things that we don't offer remotely. So the first one is called iWave, and this is a funding prospector research tool. So you can look up people and find out who to ask and how much to ask for and what kind of causes that they are likely to be interested in giving. So a really powerful tool. And we also have the Candid Foundation Center directory. So 90% of foundations don't have a website, so you're not going to be able to find these grants through Google, but you can find them through the Foundation Center directory. It's got corporate giving programs, grants, and you can really narrow it down by geographic area, by kind of the interest. So everything from folk art to forestry. So you can find really niche what it is that you're looking for.
What's the one thing you wish every business owner knew before they walked through your door looking for capital through lending or through an SBA loan? What do you wish they knew? I'll start with you, Julie, since you're staring at me like I have been thinking about this question all day.
One thing that I would probably say is organization, having your financials up to date, having projections, and working, listening to your banker, because a lot of times I will send out, I meet with them, we talk about their request, and I send them a list of everything that I need. It may be, and I tell them it's going to be a long list, but we're going to work through this together. And they'll send me back 5 of the items. Okay, can we get my loan now? I'm like, no, I need everything. I still need this. And getting it to your banker timely also is very important, because especially if we're going with SBA, the documents have to be dated within 90 days of submitting the loan. So sometimes they take so long to get me one piece, everything is outdated, and we have to start over. So being organized and having everything together and prepared in one package to get to the bank is probably what I would tell them.
Awesome. What about you, Lane? What do you wish they knew?
I'd like them to know, can you hear me?
Yeah,
okay?
just a little bit closer.
A clear idea of what they're looking for. Okay. What are you trying to accomplish? What do you need? And then, having the documentation ready, which is, it's the numbers, it's the tax returns, it's the existing financials, and the personal info. A lot of people, they forget that there's some business numbers, but there's somebody behind the business that's going to be guaranteeing the loan, and we need that information as well. So just having both your business and your personal info ready is going to be a decent little list. But just having that information handy and ready to go.
Thank you. Will, what about you?
You try to avoid paying taxes, but we can't help you if you're not showing the cash flow. So understanding that cash flow is very, very important from a banker standpoint. So, don't cheat on your taxes.
Yeah, and I'll tell people you can't.
Best advice.
You can't have it both ways. You can't not pay your taxes and get the bank loan. So
Too much taxes is the best problem a business has. It means you're making a bunch of money.
If you're really losing money, we need to figure out why you are.
Yeah. So Adam, let's talk a little bit about, so you support a lot of different small businesses. How do you position them to when they're saying, hey, I think I really need to deepen my relationship with the bank. I need a loan. I need a line of credit. What is your advice for them?
Well, number one is there's no separating you from the business. People come in and they're like, well, I don't want to sign to be a part of it. It's like, well, especially like I'll use the SBA example. That's backed by the government, right? Who's the government? Who's funding the government? Me, you. If they don't want to put their name on it, I don't want to put my name as a taxpayer on the loan, right? So there's no separating you from the business. Again, I'll go back to something I said before, know how much and for what, right? I can't tell you how many times I see a proposal where it says, oh, and they're like $10,000 cushion. Banks don't fund cushion, right? Nobody funds cushion. Maybe the furniture maker. But that's another thing is know how much you need. And the other thing is don't get locked in. People come in and say, I need an SBA loan. And it's like, all right, do you need an SBA loan? Maybe conventional's better. Maybe a line of credit, maybe a home equity line of credit. There's something called a ROBS account, which is rollover for business start, where you take your retirement. So it's have an open mind about what funding instrument you need. But people and I'll say it because the banks won't. The worst thing about a SBA loan is they call it government guaranteed lending. And people think, oh, I'm guaranteed to get the loan. No, that's not how it works. The government guarantees the bank won't lose their shirt on the loan. You're not guaranteed anything.
Yeah, so let's talk a little bit about that, because I think kind of the questions I hear is like, hey, how do I fund my business? And usually the second question after that is, I think I need an SBA loan. What is an SBA loan? Let's talk a little bit about that. Let's share a little bit about what does that actually mean, and maybe demystify a little bit of that, if you don't mind.
Okay, the SBA loan is, just like Adam said, it's a government guaranteed. A portion of the loan is guaranteed. An SBA guarantee cannot make a bad loan good. So what banks typically use SBA for is if there's a collateral shortfall. A lot of collateral shortfalls are going to come into a business where they don't really have any tangible assets, or they don't have real estate. They have inventory, they have accounts receivable. So in that case, you're almost always going to have a shortfall of collateral. But if we have an SBA guarantee, then that kind of mitigates that shortfall. Another reason you'd want to use SBA is because you can usually get in with less equity. There's less down payment. So a lot of new business acquisitions, even businesses who need to expand, as I said earlier, use somebody else's cash. So you want to get in the deal with as little cash as you can. So most SBA loans require 5 to sometimes 30% down, depending on the type of real estate. But on average, it's 10% equity. Conventional, it's typically 20%. So that's another reason we may use SBA. With SBA, you can also, with real estate, get a longer amortization than conventional in many cases. And if you are financing a business that does not have real estate as collateral, you have the inventory or equipment, instead of a 5-year amortization with conventional, you can get 10 years with SBA.
Okay. Go ahead, Wayne.
Yeah, I'm a conventional banker with home bank, commercial banker. And if somebody comes to me and says, hey, I need an SBA loan, I say, great, let's explore that. But I'm still going to send you the same set of documents that I need regardless. And I'm going to explore conventional financing and then see if SBA fits. If there's some gap or something that we need SBA to fill, we'll work on that. But the starting process is exactly the same.
Yeah. Go ahead.
I want to say this. I love the SBA product. And I really love the SBA product because it helps the bank mitigate the risk. When I was the SBA manager for a large bank here, in Baton Rouge, we did about $29 million a year in SBA lending. And also at B1, we own our own SBA department called Waterstone, and we are one of the top 5 lenders in the state. In doing so, it helps that bank mitigate risk, but it also helps if you're trying to do a business acquisition loan. Very good with that. Even a startup, most startups, we try to do SBA lending with those where you keep your day job and build your hustle on the side. Everybody say that with me. Keep your day job and build your hustle on the side.
Did Tony Sanders, where's Tony at? I feel like Tony's pulling the strings above Will here.
Yeah, no, I'm serious because we've got a lot of startups done like that because you can use that cash flow from your day job and do projections. And our foundation, B1 Foundation, helps you put that package together from a lender's perspective and help get that done. So I love the SBA. It helps mitigate risk. Now, what we try to do if you are existing business, we'll give you a side-by-side comparison and give you the best loan that's for you, for your particular situation. But I love the SBA product.
Absolutely. And Will, I do want to ask you specifically about the B1 Foundation. So you guys tell us a little bit about what that is, early stage businesses and how that's supporting the growth of that, which also does not lock people into using B1 Bank. This is a community program. So talk to us a little bit about what that is and how that works.
Right. We started a foundation 2 years ago called B1 Foundation. We're the community outreach arm of B1 Bank. What we found out, there was a gap for people understanding how to become a bankable. So from a banker's perspective, we help you get bankable and before you even go to the bank. So we help you pre-underwrite your credit. And then if it doesn't fit our credit criteria, we have other lenders that we partner with, credit unions, CDFIs, and we've helped them get about $34 million in capital over the last couple of years. So we partner with the SBDCs, we partner with Stuart in the alliance, we partner with other banks to help get the knowledge out. It's not about B1. We're just trying to get that banking knowledge to everybody because it can be daunting when people come to the bank and they're afraid of doing it. So we walk you through that process.
Yeah. And it's really great that they're doing that. And like I love one of the things that they're doing is that someone walks out of the B1 Foundation, they're not just necessarily going to bank with B1 Bank. I mean, they're
real quick.
Yeah, go ahead.
We have a business co-working space at 4944 Florida Boulevard where you have 24-hour access. We have low rent for tenants that go there. We have 11 tenants in there now, $350 for an office, $250 for a cube, $89 to be a member. And we help you go through that process. As a matter of fact, we had a client get about $200,000 on a line of credit. He's one of the tenants in the building. Yeah. And so he don't pay that high rent. So B1 Foundation, we're so happy. This commercial been approved by B1 Bank, B1 Foundation. Thank you so very much.
Yeah. I want to kick it to Adam real quick, and I want to talk about this, and I want y'all to weigh in on this, but there's a lot of small businesses that work on their capital or they fund their business not only through like a bank loan, but also like there's other alternative lending. And Adam, you and I've talked a lot about this. Credit cards and all these other things. I mean, these are sources of capital, but let's talk a little bit about that because I would imagine somebody out here is probably like, yeah, that's kind of my first go-to bank. Let's just talk a little bit about that. And what do we want people to know about these alt lending practices and what does that look like? And I'm not trying to make like scary things here, but I just think we need to talk about it. Let's shine some light on it.
Well, I'll tell a quick story, right? Has anybody seen these axe throwing places where you throw axes? I had somebody.
And don't stand in front of them.
I had somebody years ago come to me and said, I want to start this axe throwing business. People are going to come, drink beer, throw axes. And I'm like, you're not opening. It's not happening. And they said, no, it's a good business. I was like, all right, well, if you think so, trust me, the businesses I think are good and the ones I think are bad have no relevance in the success they have. But I was like, all right, well, banks don't want to lend axe throwing with beer. I said, how much does it take? He goes, oh, we just need to buy some wood and some axes and pay the down payment on the rent. He's like, 10 grand. I said, how quickly can you pay that back? He goes, once we're open, I'll pay that back within 3 months. I said, well, this credit card over here has 12 months, no interest. So he got free money through a credit card to start the business. And so there's lots of ways to do that. Now, if he said it's going to take me 10 years to pay it back, then it's don't touch the credit card. So it's just figuring out what the source is, what the use is, and how long you need it for when you can pay it back. So whether it's through credit card, I mentioned a rollover for a business start where you can use your 401k basically it basically says this business is my retirement plan. It's risky, but it prevents that taxes from people cashing out your retirement to open the business. So there's lots of different ways. It's just understanding what it is you're trying to do, how much you need, and where to go. Will mentioned they work with the CDFIs, True Fund. I know they work with Hancock too. True Fund, if your credit score is a little bit lower, but you got a great story, they're more interested, right? So it's just understanding every scenario for your business specifically, and then trying to figure out, all right, what's the right path to go down.
Yeah. So any thoughts that you guys have about alternative funding and what you're seeing others have done to maybe close the gap for themselves?
Well, I've referred business to True Fund that, we could not finance because either, like Adam said, the credit score is low, or there's just some, other little thing that can't get over the bank requirements. Because banks are going to have a little bit stricter requirements than a non-traditional lender. And, Hancock Whitney may not want to be in one industry. Well, I know somebody at every bank because we all used to work together at some point. So, I was referring something earlier to Will. I'm like, hey, I've got a deal I can't do. Can I send it to you? So my goal is to help the customer get financing. And if there is an issue, I know earlier someone mentioned getting declined. If I decline you, I'm going to tell you 3 things on how I can get you approved later. So I think that's very important. It's very hard to decline someone. It's not something that, I take pleasure in. And so if I am going to decline you, I'm going to say, this is fine. This is how you can get bankable. So that's kind of one thing I have referred to other banks or non-traditional bank lenders. I'm going to say, don't use your credit card because some people I'm working with someone right now, instead of she got a line of credit, she funded it, didn't pay it back, and then she started getting all these credit cards. It's very hard to refinance credit card debt with the SBA or conventional.
Yeah, that was a very specific small. 99% of people don't.
People to Adam all the time, so I have to give him a hard time. But the good news for this lady's business, she's been in business 10 years. They have equity in their home. They have other assets. So I think I can get a deal done for her. But have a conversation with your banker before you just start going down these different roads, because they should give you the advice. And if they don't, find a different banker, because you need someone that hears what your need is and tries to give you the answer. I may not know every answer, but I'm going to do my best to advise you to go speak with someone else if I don't know the answer.
Yeah. Lane, anything to add there?
Yeah. I was going to say that I have helped quite a few people pay off credit card debt, and it's okay if it's short term and you have a way out. But and I've seen quite a few people do 12 months interest free, and then when that's up, they find another one. But I say that's taking your personal credit for a ride, and you're going to affect your credit score, and it's it's going to hurt you in the end.
Yeah. So Craig Gehring said something earlier in the panel before that I thought was really interesting, and I wanted to get y'all's take on this. But Craig said, I didn't walk in and try to pose that I was somebody that I was not. I was willing to go in and have a vulnerable conversation. Talk a little bit about how important that is for you guys when you're meeting with a small business owner. Just maybe talk a little bit more about how you would encourage everybody here. Like, look, it's okay to not know. And it's okay to come from a vulnerable place. Like, talk a little bit about why that's so important to you guys and how that just really helps them in the long run. Because maybe somebody just needs to hear that to have a little bit more confidence to be like, okay, I don't have it all figured out. And I don't have to come in and pose that I'm somebody bigger than I actually am. Right? Talk a little bit about that.
One of the 5 C's of credit is character. That's the biggest one for me. And
why?
Because you are the business. A lot of times people buy you, not the product. I've helped somebody that had a 620 credit score when I wouldn't help somebody with an 800 because of character. And you want to get a banker that understands your business, that's as passionate about you. A bank with a community feel with a city flavor. Y'all know what I mean by that? Everybody know what I mean by that?
Tell us, Will. Preach.
Can I preach?
I know you can preach, my friend.
Amen. Now,
He, by the way, that day job and that side hustle, preacher.
What I mean by that, a bank with big bank products, but still going to give you that personal feeling that you need. And that's why I love Julie. Julie, she gets so personable with everybody. And there are bankers out there that toot their nose up. And guess what? I wouldn't waste time with them. I would go to somebody that want to understand my business, no matter how big or small, and do it that way. Now, my last question, do everybody know what we talk about when we say CDFIs? Have y'all heard that before?
Tell us, Will.
Okay. It's called a Community Development Financial Institution. These are organizations that they have relaxed credit guidelines like Lift Fund. They got True Fund.
True Fund. Yep.
We also at our bank is starting with a special purpose credit program to help you grow and so you can go to an extra bank. So those are great institutions. The rates are a little higher. You follow me? But you can go to get scale to the next level by going to those places. Okay.
One other thing about alternative lenders is you go to places and they're like, a decision as little as 15 minutes. If it's 15 minutes, they're not considering character. They're not understanding the story, right? So approval in 15 minutes, that means they're looking at 2 numbers, 3 numbers at the most, and they're going to say, oh, those are good numbers, or those are bad numbers, right? So I always tell people, and again, I'm not a banker, but I tell people, wherever you're banking, when somebody gives you that check to deposit, don't pull the app out, scan and deposit it. Walk in there, talk to the folks, see what's going on. Make friends with your banker, because then when you need money, they know who you are, and they already have a little bit of that character built up with you. They know who you are, and it's not, oh, it's just Johnny off the street. It's Bill who's in here every Friday depositing the stuff before payroll hits.
I just want to make one last comment about this character piece. Tell the truth. You just tell the truth. Don't lie, because bankers are private investigators. I've been honest with you.
The other side hustle.
Julie?
Yep. I've already Googled you and LinkedIn you and everything else.
Yeah, we're going to check you out. We're going to know your blood type. We're going to triage you, And so it's no way to get around not telling the truth.
Yeah.
Because we're going to find out about it. So if you don't have a bankruptcy, go ahead and tell the truth. Because if you put no on your financial statement, when I pull it and I see it, oh, I can't trust them. You follow me?
Yeah.
So just tell the truth.
And when it comes to SBA, a lot of this affects people in Louisiana because we've had floods and everything else. You better make sure you're paying back your SBA disaster loan, your economic injury disaster loan. You better be paying your student loans. If you had, anything during the PPP pandemic, if you got a loan for that, just make sure you're paying that, because that's all government guaranteed loans. So if you're not paying those back, then the SBA is not going to approve you for another government guaranteed loan.
Yeah. Go ahead, Dwayne.
I'll add to what Will said. Yeah, if we will find out if you're lying, and trust goes a long way. Once you burn that bridge, it's hard to come back from it.
Yeah. Well, go ahead, Adam.
I was going to say, I worked with a business it wasn't a business. It wanted to be a business. They had a business plan, and for marketing, they were like, we're going to advertise here. And they hit Control F in Word and replaced the word Austin, Texas with Denham Springs, Louisiana. And I read the plan. I called the banker. I said, I wouldn't give them any money. They're not invested in this. And they didn't give them any money. So, I mean, you just, if you want to build the business and you want to get a loan for it, you better live and breathe that business and that loan and make that banker trust you.
Stuart, I just want to tell one story real quick. I think y'all going to laugh about this one. I had this client, and this is why you got to watch who you get going in business with and partnership with. We was financing a daycare for this guy, and he had a partner that had the experience. So we had can y'all hear me? We had the loan approved and all of that. So we started doing our research. We found out that the partner was a child molester, and he did not tell the guy that he was in business with. Y'all follow me? It immediately was turned down. But character is everything.
Yeah. Well, one thing I love that we've gotten to this place, because one of the things that I would tell you guys I have 5. Thank you, Andrew. I thought you had a question. I was like, yes, Andrew in the corner. Is that one thing that I always find true about successful entrepreneurs, and I'm not talking about successful like they've done all, I'm just talking about like They're just good people. They're doing the right things. They have a good relationship with their banker. And so I think that very much does speak to that character side. And we're going to talk about today, we already have, and we're going to talk about in a second. There are multiple ways to fund your business, but guess what? You're still depositing your checks, your money that comes into your business into a bank. There's no reason why not to have a relationship with your banker. Maybe you guys talk a little bit about what value you've seen kind of like in your own experience of the people who have really engaged you in that relationship versus those that maybe just they don't really want to do that. Maybe talk a little bit more about the value that you would encourage everyone here to have a deeper relationship with their banker.
One of my favorite sayings is your bank is only as good as your banker, because I agree because if you have the right banker and you know who to call, you can get anything done. And one of the, something I've learned recently, like with the PPP loans back during COVID, if you worked with some of the big national banks, you might have been out of luck because you couldn't get anybody on the phone. There was nobody to help you. It was the smaller community banks that really shine through. But my goal is to be an advisor to your business. And again, coming in and being a little vulnerable and not trying to dictate how things goes a long way to establishing that relationship.
You said earlier about, business owners may not understand financials. Well, bankers may not understand your business because I've had lumber mills, AC/DC motor repair. I've had all kinds of stuff. I'm having to Google what do they do and look at their website. And so I think it's very important to have a banker who is interested enough to come out and visit your business. We had a banker leave and, as they do, and went to another bank. Well, I had this client that was transferred to me, and I'd probably met with them once or twice that year, and I called and say, hey, I want to come by and, visit and blah, blah, blah. And they're like, is everything okay? Well, why are you coming out here? What's wrong? And I said, I'll just like to come visit you, a couple of times a year. And they said, we've seen you more in 1 year than we saw the other person in 5. So to me, that's a bad sign. If your banker wants to come out to visit, it's to really understand how your business is doing, because customers sometimes don't tell their banker if they need something or if everything's going great. And so I just like to take that opportunity once or twice a year to meet with my client, find out what's going on. Do you have any needs? Do you have equipment that you need to purchase next year? Do you need to expand? So we can start, preparing for that if that's going to be a need. So that's important.
I was talking to somebody that works with Julie a couple weeks ago, and she's like, Julie was out here, and she was asking why my sign isn't out in front of the shopping center. And like that, that's because they took the time to meet with Julie and make the bank a part of their team. And I got stories about people that aren't up here that do the same thing, where it's, why don't you have air conditioning installed over here in this part of it, right? They become a part of the team, and the time to talk to them isn't when it goes wrong. It's before that happens, so they can help stop that stuff from going wrong.
Yeah, I'm curious if I asked everybody here, maybe you don't have to show hands, but maybe just internally answer this, but how nervous would you be if your banker called and said, hey, I'm going to come by and do a field trip next week, right? It might be like, uh-oh. But
or if you have a bank and not a banker, that's
right. But I also think what Julie's saying is maybe it's not our place to wait for the banker to do that. Maybe it's our role as the leader of our organization to go build that relationship with that banker, that when that phone call comes, you say, absolutely, the coffee will be on.
So Gale presents Udemy and LinkedIn Learning. They're both online, on-demand video course providers. And here are some examples of some of the financial related courses that they have. Of course, they have courses on kind of every stage of business and every minutiae you can imagine. But so if you're not sure about how to get your finances organized, how to do certain things, then this is a great place to start to take one of these courses and learn more about it.
All right, guys, let's talk about the topic of equity, which basically is the deepest level of marriage short of marriage, right, Tony Sanders? All right, guys. So this is something that may not be something that is part of your business landscape today. But the reality of it is that most successful businesses at some point take on other business partners. And those other business partners come in and not only do they write you checks, but they're also expecting things in return. And I think Tony talked a little bit about that earlier, just like the marriage side of this. So I want to just talk a little bit about this. What does it mean to actually give up equity? Like at a very fundamental, like, hey, I'm going to give somebody equity. What does that really even mean? I'm going to kick it to any one of our people who have ever given up equity before.
I'll shoot, but I mean,
you may have turned on
a percentage of the cash flow, right? So if the business does well and you want to take out $100,000, well, if you give up 20% of the equity, 20% of that cash goes away. And the second thing is if you're giving up equity early on and that business grows, you're giving up a ton of that appreciation as well. So using other people's money with debt is cheaper than equity. So to the extent you can, bootstrap it and borrow the money before you need to go plunge into equity.
I think the bottom line is you're giving up ownership. So whatever, sometimes control, yeah, but you're giving up ownership. And each time you give up ownership, you know, if you end up giving up more than 51% ownership, or if you give up 51% ownership, you've basically lost control of your business, right? Now, there are ways and mechanisms where you can keep some control and still give up equity, but ultimately you're giving up ownership in your business.
I will just add, spot on, but what that means is that you answer to somebody else. It's not just yourself at night. You're reconciling how to move on the next day, what next steps to take, how to keep your employees working so that they can feed their families, but you're answering to somebody else who's invested in your company and they're looking for a return.
Yeah, I'm going to add to that what Kelly just said, because I think that's the biggest misconception is people take on equity partners and they think, oh, I can pay myself a salary, I can do all this, and I don't have to be told what to do and all. And it's like Tony said earlier, the minute you take on equity, you've just married that person. Mm-hmm. And the responsibility, or your responsibility as a business owner, is no longer to yourself or your family. Your primary responsibility is now you are a fiduciary responsible to provide a return or some cash flow or dividends or something down the line to that investor. You become second.
Yeah, go ahead, Tony.
I think to that point, you have to like your investors. If you don't like them, don't take their money. Because they're going to call you whenever they want, and they're going to expect you to pick up the phone. You're going to have to meet with him. You're going to have to talk with him. You're going to have to work with them for the duration of your business. And if you don't like them, don't take the money. Get to know them. Take your time. Go to dinner. It's literally just like relationship building, like dating. Like don't rush it, because you'll find yourself with regret shortly thereafter. But this is a far more expensive type of regret, especially if you're working on something substantial.
Yeah, most entrepreneurs say they start a business because they want to be their own boss. As soon as you take someone else's money, you're no longer your own boss.
That's right.
They call it patient capital because oftentimes these relationships could be as long as 10, maybe 20 years.
Yeah. So let's talk a little bit. We've mentioned the word angels already today. So let's just talk a little bit about angels and what the value is, and maybe talk a little bit about the angel landscape that's here in Louisiana.
I'll get that started because I've funded, we raised $26 million to build Waiter into a $1 billion business. And most of that was angel money. And I'll give you kind of the order of how you should start. If you're going to raise equity capital in this sense, you're going to sell some ownership in your business. Number one is and to Tony's point about liking your investors or making sure you know who they are, friends and family is the first place you get money, right? So you give up a little bit of your company in exchange for your friends and family giving you money. And then the next group after that, so they get maybe you build your minimum viable product, you start getting some customers with their money. The next group are what are called angel investors. So I'm an angel investor. I'm someone who's had success in business, my wife and I take some of that money that we've made in business and we invest it in other companies. I helped my son get his company started in 2020. We're still investing, as that company grows, we're still investing money in that company. Annabeth, who's here earlier, has gone now. I'm investing in her business, and I've invested in a bunch of other people's businesses. Those are high net worth individuals. They're in Louisiana. There are a number of organized angel groups that are made up of groups of high net worth individuals that look to invest small, or in some cases larger amounts of money in other people's businesses through buying a percentage ownership in those businesses. And those are the two primary sources of early capital to get your business going. If you've made that decision, you're going to build a scalable or a growth business, and you're okay with having someone else have ownership of it.
That's great.
I want to
Go
add
ahead.
two things to that, and it's combining what a few people have said is knowing your investor is know what else they may be invested in. I've had a few situations where someone invests in the business and they're also investing in 10 other things, and while they were thinking about maybe a 5-year horizon, they need cash quickly, and they'll start pressuring you, and all of a sudden their expectations change. So understand that. We've said a lot about marriage here. I'd also have to say that, don't forget about the divorce, and I usually try to plan that. The second you take money, there needs to be a plan of how do we buy, sell this out. If we do decide to get divorced, I'd rather have an agreed upon way to separate versus pay lawyers and bankers and go through all of that.
What Ben's saying is a prenup.
Yeah.
You got a prenup.
I love it. Okay. Anything else you guys want to add about the angel environment here in Louisiana?
And just know what they know besides their bank balance, right? Have them bring something else to you besides just money. Know what else that they can add value and how they can help you. Is they're now a part of your company?
Especially if as it relates to organized capital, venture capital, those kind of equity investors.
So what else could you leverage from an angel network aside from their money? Leverage their networking group, leverage the coaching that they can offer. Birds of a feather typically flock together, so they might have some buddies with money that may also want to put some skin in the game and invest at that level as well.
Yeah, let me tell a quick story if you don't mind.
I would love it.
So when I started Waiter, I had just moved back to Louisiana. I was born and raised here. Right out of college, I moved to the Dallas-Fort Worth area, lived there for 20 years. I moved back to Louisiana in 2011 for something that didn't work out, and I started Waiter in 2013. And I was living in Lake Charles, Louisiana. I knew nobody, right? I'd been gone from the state for 20 years. My son was in 7th grade, and he had a basketball game, and I'm walking, I'm thinking about starting Waiter. And in fact, I had just gone to Startup Weekend, and we had won the Startup Weekend competition. I was like, now I got to do this, but I don't know anyone to raise money. And at the time, I didn't have any money to invest in it. So I'm walking across the court at my son's basketball game, and an old college buddy from LSU stops me and says, "Chris Moe, what are you doing here?" I'm like, "Oh, I'm living here in Lake Charles now." He's like, "Oh, really? What are you doing?" I was like, "Well, funny you ask. I'm getting ready to start this new company called Waiter." And I told him what it was. And I said, "By the way, I know you're a lawyer, and I'm looking for a lawyer to, do the paperwork to help me get this business started." He's like, "Well, I do litigation." He said, "But my law partner does general law. So why don't you come to the office and meet with us, and, I'll introduce you to him." And he said, "We want to hear more about what you're doing." So I went in a couple of days later, met with him, told him what I was doing, and they're like, "Man, are you looking for any investors?" "Well, Eric, in fact, yes, I am." How much money are you looking for?" "Well, I think I'm going to raise somewhere around $200,000. Now, I had already done the work, gone through the Startup Weekend, done all the stuff at Startup Weekend to build the projections, to know what we needed, all that stuff, right? And he's like, "Well, man, we might have other law partners that are interested." Now, I knew nobody. I ran into an old college buddy who invited me to his office to meet a lawyer that I was going to potentially get to start the paperwork. They saw what I was doing. They got interested in the idea. They said, "Hey, will you come back tomorrow and pitch all of our partners on investing?" I had decided I was going to raise $200,000. In less than a week, I had $180,000 in commitments from these lawyers. Now, there's a funny side to this story. These guys were all personal injury lawyers, right? I was starting a business that was going to have hundreds of thousands or tens of thousands of drivers on the road. Didn't know that how smart of getting those guys involved, how smart it was to get them involved. But the point there is that started to build the network, right? And that one conversation on a kid's basketball court led to 180,000 in commitments. And like I said earlier, within 2 weeks, I had raised the 200,000 in equity that I needed. And I had given up 27% of my company to do that, right? So you never know where that network is going to lead you. But if you're prepared, they say the definition of luck is when opportunity meets preparedness.
Yeah.
That's luck.
That's a great story. And I'm really grateful that you just shared the dollar amount and the percentage amount, because do the math in your head. And I think what you just shared is that was really expensive money.
Okay, so let me give you how expensive that was.
Yeah.
So when we sold the company for $300 million, 30%, basically 27% of $300 million was a lot of money, right? That's money that maybe I would have had, but it's also money that I may not have had because I never would have been able to build the business without it. Now, I'm not saying go sell 27% of your company for $200,000. I recommend against every entrepreneur, don't do that anymore. That was way too much to give up for $200,000, but of course I didn't know that at the time, right?
Yeah. But I think it's a good point to talk about. The stakes get heavier when we start moving out of grant competitions, pitch competitions, loans. The bank just wants their percentage back. And this is something that I just want everybody to be able to understand. This is real. This is where the conversation gets real. Marriage, you're giving up equity, you're doing all that stuff. So I love what you said about opportunity meets preparedness, right? And it's like, well, how do you as a small business owner be more prepared for if you walk into these conversations, you need to be as prepared as possible. Go ahead, Tony.
I think on the note of preparedness, especially for early stage ideas, new small businesses that are seeking investment, the investors are not investing in your business because you won't be able to speak articulately or too informed around the future. When you're talking about 5 years out, you're really just licking your index finger and guessing. What they're investing in is you. They're investing in you if you are the smartest person in the room on the problem that you're trying to solve. Right? In other words, are you teaching them something that they didn't know? Are you educating them on a problem or business opportunity that they didn't know? And then they're going to go off and do their research. They're going to go talk to their smart friends. And they're like, you didn't know about this either? Wow, this guy, this girl is really on to something, right? But that takes preparedness. That takes right now, before anyone has a checkbook open to you, that's like, what are you doing with the 50 hours of extra time each week you have, right? Because we work a 40-hour job, we sleep 6 hours a night, you take care of kids, you go to the gym, do these things. After all that, you got another 40 hours to build something special after all that. And so that's time where you're studying, you're researching, you're putting in the work, you're talking with customers. You're becoming the smartest person in Louisiana on the problem you're trying to solve. And you're teaching the investment community about a new industry, a new opportunity they didn't even know about. And so now they feel like they have to give you money or they're going to miss out, that FOMO, right? But if you haven't shown them in a 30-minute conversation that you haven't studied this, they're asking basic questions around the industry and you're fumbling over your papers. You haven't done the research. You haven't. Well, why would I give you money? Maybe. And so preparedness has to do with all these hours and weeks and months long before you're ready to ask for money. You have to become a student of the business you're trying to solve.
I love that. And I want to add to that real quick.
Domain expert. That's what I call it.
Yeah. But here's the other thing too. You're exactly right. People are getting ready to go ask for an investment. They start doing that. But the true entrepreneur does that long before they're even at the bank. They're even at any of these early stages we talked about. The true entrepreneur is that. I like to call them the gym rat, right? You can't, like the janitor's like, we're turning off the lights, locking the door, and turning on the alarm, and you beg for 5 more minutes. So I love that you said that, Tony, because that is like the true entrepreneurial spirit. And when you are going to be that business owner, what manifests at the equity level when you get there is going to be more true, real. You'll have better results if you were doing that from the beginning.
And the last point I want to make on that, the reason I brought that up is because, again, very early stage, they're not investing in the idea as it's presented in that PowerPoint. It's probably going to change. You're probably going to pivot. You're probably going to change direction as it goes. But they want to know that they're giving capital and money to someone who is obsessed with this problem. Even if the how you solve the problem changes over time, you're not going to give up on that problem because you're obsessed with it. And that has to come across in these meetings, these interviews, these investor presentations. It has to be tangible. You ever met someone that when they're talking about a problem, they're like, I never saw anyone cared that much about something, right? Like those are the folks that get, you see these news articles like this person raises $2 million, this person, it's those people.
They fell in love with the problem, not the solution.
Yeah, no, so let me add there too, because all is 100%, 200% accurate. So we got to have passion. We got to have a product. We got to be solving a problem. We got to know our stuff. At the end of the day, like, let's remind ourselves what equity is. It's money left over after you've paid off all debt holders, vendors, credit cards, everything. So you got to know what that's worth. And when you're going in the VC world, you guys would know, infinitely more than I would. But they're thinking if they're giving you $2 million, they need to get 8 back. So do you have a way?
20.
Yeah. But usually I'm thinking 4 or 5x is what they're thinking.
10.
There you go. So you need to know, I'm going to that business, like that's what they're thinking. So how can I show how this business is going to scale? Starts with you, but how are you going to build that?
Be open to advice as well. If you're working with somebody who's making a direct investment in your company, or you're approaching, say, a venture capital fund who is investing in your business, oftentimes these venture capital funds will provide technical assistance to help you with coaching, mentoring. Maybe they'll provide in-office space for you to work. They'll introduce you to their networking group because your success is also their success. So be open to the advice that they give you. The money you initially take from angels will differ from the money that you take from venture capitalists, and the money that you take in a Series A will differ from the money that you take in a Series B. If you start off as an LLC, you may be told at one point that you'll have to consider converting to a C Corp because that's going to attract the bigger dollars depending upon what your business goals are and ultimately what you envision for your business.
And one other thing, we're talking a lot about numbers and profit loss statements and things like that. And one thing to realize too, you're going to have to put in 18, 20 hours a day into this. Think about what does that do to your family? And I know Chris likes to talk about this a lot. You're doing this together. I mean, a family core, you're doing it together, the highs and the lows. And you need to make sure you have a good support network. You need to make sure you remain healthy, both mentally and physically, because if you're putting in this much hours into this business, it's going to start taking a toll on yourself. And so you need to make sure that you're taking care of yourself as well.
Yeah, that's great advice. And one of the earlier panelists, it might have been Craig or it might have been you, Tony, that talked about, it was about finding a community. And, one thing I would encourage everyone to think about, I know we've talked about a lot of stuff today, but like the thing is this, you don't have to do this alone. And there's people up here who literally are paid to sit in their office all day and field these kind of opportunities to be able to talk to you about it. There's also people in the community who have gone before you who are happy to share. I mean, these guys are giving you like unbelievable wealth of knowledge up here, for free because they care about you guys and they want you to know what they wish they would have known a long time ago. I want to talk about the equity investment of a financial equity partner and a strategic equity partner, and how important is that, and why do those two things exist, and how are those things as you guys see them? Go ahead, Tony.
I can just kick this off. So a strategic investor is one that could potentially acquire your company because it helps them and their bigger company move faster and advance in their industry. They may not be a traditional investor. They may be, again, just a bigger company in your space, but those are good candidates for investors in your business for a few reasons. One, they understand what you're trying to solve. But because they're larger and been around for a while, they have trouble with thinking about the problem in a different way. So they're always looking for new ways to solve their problem. So you're bringing some fresh ideas, some fresh energy into a larger traditional business, and they'll give you some investment up front. So SkillType, my software startup, has 3 strategic investors. They also want a front row seat in case we sell. They want to get in early on that. So that's when we say a strategic investor, it's not someone on their website or in Google that says, we're an investment firm. It's like, oh no, we're a business in this industry, or we're a company that specializes in this. And so whatever type of small business you're working on, if you're working on a construction company, Turner Industries would be a strategic investor, or Lemoyne would be a strategic investor.
Healthcare, Ochsner, Tulane.
Exactly. And so it's those companies that we see, those household names, they are good candidates for investing in you if you're working on something different.
Yes. Oh, we're going to move to Q&A in just one second. Well, what about, let's talk a bit about financial investors. Somebody jump into that a little bit more. And the value of it. No one ever wants to talk about the financial investors.
I think that might be where what I'm coming from is more of the, like, kind of the 4X type. So strategic, they're looking for how can I take this idea and blow it out of the water or catch it early stage on some of the VC side. Financial is probably, I'm a numbers guy. They're looking at it as, if I give you a check, how do I get my money back? And not to bore everybody with numbers, but if I can make 5% pretty safe, that's fine. If I can go out and make 12% in some sort of debt area, I'm looking to make 20% on my money, 20 to 30%, and I'm happy with a 5-year payout. And that's how they're thinking about it, which is totally different than, like, how do we go from this concept to blow it up?
Right. And that financial partner probably doesn't want to get the phone call where it's like, hey, I'm thinking about our go-to-market strategy. But as Tony was just talking about, the strategic partner would warrant that. Yeah, let's talk about that because they're in that space. They understand that. They're like he said, they're seeing you as a bolt-on accelerant to something for them. They want to kind of communicate with you, and that's a good partner. Oh, we have 5. Okay, cool. Thank you.
Yeah. So like so SkillType has been around for about 6 years. We make software for workforce development. So we use data and AI to find skill gaps across a workforce. We have about 9 investors. 3 are strategic. Those 3 strategic ones are the ones I talk to every month because they're going to help me in the trenches on the business and the product. Our more financial investors, we do monthly updates. We have a quarterly board meeting, and we're updating them on the performance. But it's like 30,000 square feet, right? Conversation around the business. But who's in the weeds with me and talking about, like, literally looking at our customer relationship management tool and, like, our pipeline? Those are the strategic investors.
I'll make it real simple. Strategic investors are interested in investing for the product. Financial investors are interested in investing for the exit.
The library still has books. So one of these resources that we have, they are digital
those all
books.
digital now?
Yeah, these are digital books. So O'Reilly eBooks is one of those. They have lots of great business-related books, and they're constantly updated. So as soon as a new edition comes out, it's immediately available. There's no lag in that. And we also have Libby eBooks, where one of our most popular services for all the entertaining books, but we also have business books in there. So you can check these out, and they return themselves after 21 days, so you don't get yelled at. And if you're awake at night, worried about your business, you can just read one of these books, help you go to sleep. Thank you.
Okay, so we're going to open it up to Q&A. So any questions that you guys might have specifically on any of the topics, these guys are all versed on all those things. So just curious, what are some of the questions that are burning? Yes.
I'll say this about it. If you know from the get-go that you're building a scalable business, that you're going to raise outside capital, then please, please, please start out as a C Corp. Because if you're going to raise outside capital, you're going to have to be a C Corp. Most cases, right? Not all cases. Like if you're raising friends and family, those kinds of things. But it can create some issues. Like if you start out as an LLC, you raise outside capital, you need to go and get venture investors, and they want to invest. Venture investors only invest in preferred stock or convertible notes or things like that, which I'm not going to bore you with all the details of that. But, LLCs can't accommodate that. You have to be a C Corp. So it depends on what the goal for your business is. If you're going to be a lifestyle business, then it's probably an LLC, right? Or a partnership or something like that. But that decision probably determines what you should be out of the gate.
Yeah, and that's C Corp versus LLC. You can also make that S Corp election. And again, you're talking one class of stock with an S Corp, a limited number of investors. So if you're looking outside money, C Corp, these guys can tell you better about which state that C Corp should be in.
Delaware.
But in terms of the tax credits and stuff like that, I'm just not entirely sure.
And a selfish little plug as a CPA here is there are entities called a QSBS that may make sense if you're a C Corp and you're planning to exit. There are restrictions on you can't exit for X amount of years, but if you hold it, you don't have to pay capital gains tax. So,
I'll tell you a sad story about that one day.
But I think it's important. I mean, you need to talk to CPAs. You need to have good advisors. Don't be cheap about this. Don't just ask ChatGPT. You need to make sure you're getting, because your mileage will vary, and you need to sit down with a professional who can walk you through that and make sure you make that first election and smart.
Yeah, I think I'm going to go back to what Tony said in the first panel too. It's just really clear about what is the business that you're building. Where are you trying to go? And look, things happen. I'm sure people have started some business like, this is going to be a lifestyle business, and then it turned into something else. And it's okay because you can navigate those, but you're right. It gets more expensive down the line to undo, redo, do all these other things that if you could have just like at the beginning gone, hey, this is really what I'm looking for.
Yeah, I can just share a real story here.
Yeah.
So we started Skill Type 2018 as a Louisiana LLC. I want to do everything in Louisiana. I want to hire here. I wanted to have an office here, and I'm born and raised here. I want to do everything here. I was thinking too small about our business, and we winded up getting courted by an investor that was out of the state. Needed us to convert to a C Corp. They preferred it to be in Delaware just for best practice reasons. That cost us about $7,500 to convert. Fortunately for us, we were still smaller, not too complicated. The cap table was still pretty minor. That cost can go up if you have, like, let's say 50 angel investors and different terms, and each of them has a different contract, and it just gets more work for the attorneys to do. So you can answer some of these questions in advance if you have a clear sense of why you're starting it in the first place.
So let's start with the angel investors. Angel investors, they don't wear T-shirts that said I'm an angel investor, but it goes down to networking, and we've said this several times. Those of us in Louisiana, we know how to network. We are always one or two asks away from someone's sister, cousin's brother, and things like that. So it's just what Chris did. You just go out and start talking about what you're doing and make the ask. And because a lot of people just don't ask. And it's just like, oh, I'm looking for resources. Like, you aren't looking for resources. You're looking for cash. You're looking for an investor. Say that. And it may not be, it's just like going out for asking for money in general. The first 2 or 3 people you talk to may not get you there. But just ask them, well, who else should, okay, if it's not you or you don't know anyone, do you know anyone else that may know this? And say, oh, I know this guy who owns a car dealership. He has lots of friends or family, or an orthodontist or something like that.
I'll say go to Nexus, go to Idea Village in New Orleans, go to the Opportunity Machine in Lafayette. There's some in North Louisiana too. Go to all those organizations. That's a great place to start.
And do you guys still have a grants librarian at the River Center branch? So that's a great place to look for grants, outside of the SBIR stuff where, that's LED or LA.io.
It's important to the bankers because that personal credit score and your personal cash flow, because the bankers want to know not only what your source of repayment is, but that's called your primary source of repayment. But the bankers want to know what is the secondary source of repayment in case that primary source, which is generally your cash flow from the business operations, doesn't work out. And oftentimes they even may want to know a tertiary source of repayment. So oftentimes business operations is the primary. Secondary is going to be your personal cash flow. And then the third is liquidation. And so that's where the credit score and the personal debt service credit ratio comes into play. There are programs out there. Will with B1 Bank spoke about the foundation that offers certain programs. I know that SBA has some guarantee programs. LED has some guarantee programs, which mitigate some of the risks the lenders may perceive in the application because of a credit score or not having cash flow as strong as they would like to see. Maybe the collateral is something that is less desirable than what they would take, or considered a specialized asset, and you may have qualified for the loan, but once they discount that collateral because it's a solar panel, then you don't have enough collateral to be eligible for the loan. There are loan programs out there through various institutions. The state does have some of them, a guarantee program its own, offering up to an 80% guarantee to help mitigate those risks, maximum dollar guarantee, $1.5 million. But the state also has a cash collateral support program for business owners who are experiencing a shortfall in the collateral required by the lender to be eligible for the loan. It is not intended to be the sole source of collateral, but it is intended to help fill that shortfall. So if you have equipment in your business, and if it's not enough, if it's considered a specialized asset, so the lender had to discount the value of that collateral, whatever that reason may be, the state has a program called the Collateral Support Program, which will offer up to a $250,000 cash deposit. The full deposit is given to the bank up front. At the loan closing, it is held in a CD in the LED name, and it is pledged to the loan for the term of that loan. Once the loan is repaid, that's returned to LED so we can help other business owners. So that's a way, if maybe there's a collateral issue, that the Collateral Support Program can help. The Guarantee Program can help maybe to mitigate some of those other risks that is identified in the application.
That should be at the panel on its own, but let's go ahead, Joe.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Chris.
I just, real quick, so like the first money you raise, is either friends and family or pre-seed, right? Seed meaning pre-seed meaning you're raising some money with an idea. Like really that's all you have is just an idea. And that's why you're getting it from friends and family, people who trust you, people who know you, people who believe in you, they're investing in you, that kind of thing. Seed is now you may have the beginning, like a prototype. Let's say you've worked up some kind of prototype, whether it's a device or a software product or whatever it is. And now you want to raise money to go out and take that prototype and go test it with potential customers. That would be kind of your seed round, right? And so you start getting your first customers with your seed funding. Now your business is starting to grow and you're getting some scale, and now you're ready to really let it rip, and that's where your Series A money comes in. Series A money is essentially growth money. They're coming in to maybe you've already found what we call product market fit, and now you're ready to start scaling and growing that. So that's your Series A money. And now your Series B money is now you're really ready to launch it nationwide, right? And there's no right answer or wrong answer on what each of those rounds are called or how much you give up in each of those rounds. It's always a negotiation. And, I've seen companies that should have been raising seed rounds that are raising Series A, and Series A companies that should have been raising seed, whatever. It's a negotiation. It doesn't really, don't pay too much attention to what the round is called. It's more of a function of where your business is at that particular time where you're looking to raise capital.
Yep. Following on that, the Series A and B and subsequent rounds are based on your financials. They're based on the financial performance. Seed and pre-seed is not. It's oftentimes your pre-revenue. You haven't earned any money yet. They're investing in your team. They're investing in the product itself. Do we have some intellectual property here? Do we have something that could be patented or something defensible? The other piece to this conversation, I think, is around the series, like Chris was saying, Louisiana and different geographies have different standards for these. And so if you talk to people who've raised money in Louisiana, the percentages are going to be different. The size of the rounds are going to be different than if you were, say, in the Bay Area or in other markets. This is an ongoing conversation, but I think that's the biggest line is pre-seed and seed is oftentimes not based on your financial performance, and you can raise at a higher valuation and sort of be more pie in the sky before you raise money. Before you earn revenue. Once you have financial statements, it's just a calculation. It's less about the potential, and so it's harder to change the valuation of what you're working on once you have financials.
Yeah, think of it this way. Series B and beyond, investors are investing in the business. Series A and below, investors are investing in you.
Yeah.
And I'll put it this way of just simply risk, right? Early on, it's, when I'm thinking discount rates and what have you, I'm looking for 60, 70% return early on, pre-revenue, all of that. As I kind of mature, I'm still risky, but I'm in the 30, 40% range.
Yeah.
Well, like what Tony was saying, the value of anything is the benefit stream divided by risk, basically. And so earlier on, the risk is higher, so that numerator or the denominator is bigger. But as you start getting revenue, then that benefit stream is known, so you can't really play with the top number when it comes to a value.
And I actually want to ask a question. How many of you in the audience, how many of you do a personal budget for you individually? Raise your hand. All right. Keep the hand up if it's, keep it up. Keep it up.
Ask the question again, Ben.
How many of you do a personal budget for yourself, right? Because we're talking a lot about getting the money and then the exits, but you individually, how many of you do a personal budget? Keep your hand up if that's accurate every month. All right, good. Well, some of you that are still up there, so budgeting for your business, right? We're talking a lot about getting money and then exiting money, but there are so many variables for all of our hands up that go on with our personal budgets. Your business is 10 times harder.
Yeah.
There are always going to be 4-letter word stuff that comes up, right? So, healthy discussions, but how you're mining that and kind of building reserves and being able to weather that 3 months worth of, tough times might put you in a spot where you don't have to go out and ask friends and family for money. You don't have to go have those discussions with your bank. So, everything we're talking about is important, but the day-to-day stuff of how you manage that is just as important.
Yeah, and Ben Vance just invited himself to the panel on budgeting. So, way to go, Ben.
Broadly, SBIR.gov will have those, but you can go look at the different SBIR opportunities through the different websites. At LED, Hutch is a good starting place.
And I was going to say is, just a depth of information and resources about the SBIR STTR program. He recently relocated to our office from the LSU office downtown. And so he would be somebody that I would connect you with if you think that is some space that your business would likely fit in or benefit from that conversation. He is very well versed on the federal program and what you can do locally. And we're actually looking to add another person up in North Louisiana to have some market coverage there, boots on the ground.
Do one thing, just make a list and don't put everything on there. Make 2 or 3 things. Put the easy ones at first. And when you've done it, check it off and sit and say, okay, I've done that. Let's move on. Just take little small bites.
Yeah, and I'll add to that. So our firm adopted a framework called EOS, which you can look, not anything proprietary. Book called Traction. There's a book that I didn't feel like reading there. It's called What the Heck is EOS? It's very short, but it takes concepts from 10 years to 3 years to 1 year to 90 days. And to that point, it'll say, here's my 15 things I got to work on. And in reality, it's probably 100, but the top 15, it'll say start with 3. Do the top 3 and don't worry about number 4 to 15. Get those done and then reprioritize the next 3.